You're listening to the Junto Podcast, a podcast about leadership, faith, community, and pretty much anything else that you want to talk about. Visit us at www.juntopodcast.com. That's JUNTO podcast.com. Thanks for stopping by and enjoy the show. Extreme ownership, the topic of conversation today on the Junto Podcast. That's right, the Together podcast. And Heather, we're looking at this book. I think it's awesome. So far, we're going to be discussing part one, but we're talking about extreme ownership. Navy SEAL Jocko Willink, very, very popular. And of course, his partner, Leif Babin, authors of this book. And I'll tell you how we ran across this in just a second. But Heather, extreme ownership, how can we take ownership of our lives, be more accountable in the things that we do to become the leaders that we were born to be?
That's right. And before you log off, because you're like, well, I'm not a leader. You are a leader.
You are a leader.
Everyone is a leader.
That's exactly right.
And I'm going to prove it to you.
Prove it right now, right here.
Right now? I'm going to go in. I'm going to right now. So when we talk about leaders, we're not only talking about senior leaders. We are not only talking about leaders in charge of 5,000 or 500 people, those that are in charge of 50 or 5. We're talking about everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone is a leader. And like you said, the Jocko guy, Navy SEAL, he goes in to say, even the frontline soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine that takes ownership of their part of the mission and executes. It's leadership at every level. So when we talk about leaders, no matter where you are in the hierarchy of your organization or your home.
Oh, I love that.
Right? We're talking about you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You're a leader.
Yeah.
We're all leading something or someone. And let me start off by saying I know Jocko. I know he is a Navy SEAL, Marine, or not Marine, but I was going to say a military guy. And so I've always seen his stuff. Never really paid attention to him, though. I know he does like creatine and he has his supplements, very, very successful. But I never really... I guess you could say I wasn't really a fan of his until I started reading this book. And it's not that I wasn't a fan. It's just that I never paid any attention. But, man, if you haven't read this book, it's a really good read. He uses his time as a Navy SEAL, both him and Leif. They use their time as a Navy SEAL, talk about the things that were happening when they were in Iraq, in that region, and then they actually apply this to business principles. You can imagine in the military, my gosh, leadership is absolutely everything. It's literally life or death.
That's right.
Crazy.
It's crucial, very crucial. And we can learn so much from our service men and women.
Yes.
Like you said, the service is jam-packed with leaders. Even those who follow leadership on the different ranks. I mean, like I said, everyone is a leader. So this applies to everyone.
It really does.
You could be a leader in your I don't say it like that, like your little, you could be a leader in your friend group.
That's it. You could be the one.
Right, in your home, with your children, with your spouse. If it's just you and you don't have children, you and your spouse, or you and you're single, you're a leader somewhere, especially as we always bring everything back to our faith and as Christians. You're leading in a way that you don't even realize sometimes because people are watching.
Oh my gosh.
So you're leading them somewhere. You're leading them in the way that you act, the way that you talk, the way that you interact with other people and react, right?
Yeah, it's wild, man. And you might not think of yourself as a leader, but let me say this too about this topic. First of all, I will say that this might be a topic that does not sit easy with you. And let me tell you why. This idea of extreme ownership, it could be the very opposite of how you approach things. Let's be honest. In the workplace, something goes wrong, and it's, well, why didn't they do that? Specifically as leaders, we can look down on the people that were leading and try to pass blame. And so this idea of extreme ownership, I could also say that it's extreme accountability. It is a very different concept, and that is learning to own your mess, especially as leaders. And so in this book, we won't have time to talk about everything, but he gives lots and lots of examples of how they're called in, very successful now that they're no longer Navy SEALs, but companies call them and they do consultations, and all of these things. And so they meet with these high-level CEOs, with these big business people, and they're really shifting their mindset. And I'll say this too. A lot of times the CEOs are very hesitant, let's be honest, very hesitant to accept that things could possibly be their fault, because this idea of extreme ownership, it can sting a little bit, for being honest.
And definitely we can swing the pendulum over to those who are in fall under leadership, where they're bad mouthing the leader.
Oh, wow.
They're a terrible leader. Why aren't they doing this?
Yeah.
I mean, and we'll go into that in a minute, but like I said, everyone is a leader. Everyone has a responsibility. Whatever part you play, whatever rank or level or wherever you are in the hierarchy of whatever organization or family unit or relationship thing that you're in, everyone plays a part and must accept responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's something that I just don't like to do.
Yeah, gosh, it's easy to pass the buck. It's easy to pass blame.
I do. I want to blame someone else.
Yeah, and what I love about this,
terrible.
I recommend, and I want to say this. We try to read and do research, but this is one of the books. This is probably the first book in a long time that's really kind of just sucked me in. I'm not a huge reader, but I'm further along in this book than I would be otherwise, simply because I love it. And what I love about it, it gets very detailed about their time as a Navy SEAL in terms of war, in terms of the enemy that they were fighting, in terms of the mindset that they had to have. It talks about the conditions that they were in. And so I love that, because when you really think about it, man, we can be so, for lack of a better term, we can be really soft just in our modern comforts, in our modern day living with all the amenities that we have. And so this was a real big eye-opener. And so if you can read this and understand the principles that they had to have in a war type situation, man. And as you can imagine, being ranked, you were talking about rank, being higher ranked in the military, you literally have the lives of those that you're leading almost like they're resting in your hands. They're resting on your word.
Yeah, that's a huge responsibility. Huge responsibility. I did want to point out real quick before we go any further, I don't want to mess up your train of thought.
No.
But your new microphone.
Yes,
cover,
you like that? Check that out.
Everybody would see. And then y'all look at mine.
Listen, her mic is a little bit of a different model, okay? And so I'm working on finding one that fits hers. This is a little bit more popular microphone, and let me say this too.
The more popular one.
Listen, this microphone was gifted to me. That's the only reason I have it, because I could not at the time have afforded it otherwise, honestly. But this mic was gifted to me. So that's the only reason I even have
Clint
this mic.
My
brother Clint, oh my God, a saint. Yeah, amazing. So yes, I have the new mic.
But they probably make covers for mine
I just said, give me a moment, girl.
So
I gotta find it.
I'm lower on the totem pole.
Oh my God!
In the ranks, we're talking about ranks.
Okay, well, listen. As a using extreme ownership, that's on me.
You're to blame.
Yeah, I'm to blame. I will look for your little mic cover, and next time
we'll see if I have it next time. We'll
now,
see.
This took a couple weeks to get here, so it wasn't Amazon Prime. So if you don't have it next episode, don't be mad at me.
You better get me Prime. What you talking about?
All right, but you got something for us.
So I think we're going to do just part one, because there's two parts to this book.
That's chapters 1 through 4.
Yes, chapters 1 through 4. So we're going to do part 1 today.
Yes.
And chapter 1 is called Extreme Ownership. Now, real quick, what is extreme ownership? There are no excuses. There's no one else to blame.
Wow.
You must own everything in your world.
Oh my gosh.
Everything that affects your mission. Take ownership both up and down the chain of command.
Wow.
So wherever you're at, listen, take these points and relate them to where you are right now.
That's exactly right.
I tell you what, I like excuses. I seem to be able to come up with excuses.
Yeah,
pretty easy.
But what did it say? It said no excuses.
There's no excuses. No one else to blame.
No one else to blame.
Own everything in your world. Everything that affects your mission.
Wow, your mission. I love that. This is such a different mindset.
It is.
I feel like I try to live this way. Now, obviously, nobody is perfect and nobody can fully get it. Like you said, it's so easy to blame maybe someone else or maybe even another circumstance. Or we did a whole episode on self-sabotage.
We did.
So maybe we just
did.
self-sabotage ourselves and we have no one else to blame but ourselves, but we still find a way to blame others. And so this idea of extreme ownership, it's different. It's different. It means accountability. It means no excuses. It doesn't mean that other people may not play a part, but at the end of the day, if you're leading, if you're over that, it rests on you.
Yeah.
No one else.
Man, I was going to say, on any team, the leader bears total responsibility for the performance of that team. So on any team, the leader bears total responsibility for the performance of that team. Now, this applies to everyone, no matter where you are in the rank structure of your organization.
That's exactly
there are
right.
different levels of leaders all along the way. So we can't just say, oh, well, that's the main guy, the point guy. Like, it's all him.
Exactly.
Like, yes, total responsibility there. He's responsible for your performance wherever and you're responsible for others' performance, if that makes sense. So, but if everyone owns their stuff, their part, then it makes for a good team.
And I think that is the absolute premise of this whole thing, is that if everybody is owning their stuff, man, how effective is the team? And it gives multiple examples. I'm actually excited. I want you to finish what you've got there, but really good stories in here of just that example, and I want to bring that to light in just a second. But what else does it tell us in there?
So, gosh, and this is hard because,
is it hitting home, girl?
It is, and we're involved in, we're at the church. We are in leadership at the church with our nephew, the Hoover, Staff Sergeant Hoover Memorial. We're in leadership.
That's right.
So multiple facets. So I'm thinking of all the positions that we hold and ranks, and I'm feeling my toes are getting stepped on here. Says no matter where you are in the rank structure of your organization, it's still your fault.
Wow.
You are not following one or more of the laws of combat. You are not leading. Of course, he likens it to combat war.
Well, I mean,
which makes total sense.
I love that. I love that freaking concept, though.
Yeah.
I really do. I feel like just sometimes we can soft pedal the world. It's all about
comfort,
your feelings, and I'm not saying feelings aren't valid. I think they're very valid. But come on, dude. So I love this idea, and it's not even the idea of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's just acknowledging that you have to own your mess, and when you do that, so yes, you can see I was passionate about this.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and you have to do what it takes to achieve the goal.
Yes.
No, we don't always feel like doing it, but there are times when it's like, I'm done. Yeah. I'm just like, forget it. We failed, so that's it. I'm just going to continue to fail. No, sometimes you have to, make yourself
that's exactly right.
Do what's necessary.
100%.
Especially because it's hard. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
So it says you might not have built strong relationships that enable your team to cover and move for each other to ensure the organization wins.
To cover and move. Yeah.
Right. So maybe your team is not doing what you expect, but have you relayed those expectations?
That's it right there.
Clearly.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe you've told them, okay, these are my expectations. Have you told them the why? It goes on to say that too, that they have to understand the why they're doing what they're doing. Without that, they cannot execute, they can't adapt, they can't lead effectively.
Well, I love that. I have found myself thinking about this because I'm a very hands-off manager. I'm not a micromanager. My grant program is small. I don't have a whole lot of employees at the church, at the school. But I do have an employee, and I as I was reading these concepts in this book, it really made me think, I'm hands off, and that's a good thing. But at the same time, I can't be too hands off. In other words, I need to make sure that I've done my part to explain things to the one that's under my charge, that I've relayed expectations properly, that I've given
in.
yes, and so. sometimes I feel like I'm more hands off, and that's more of a benefit for me probably
Right.
but you know what I mean? And so, but I have to take extreme ownership. Like that grant program, I'm director. And so at that
Right.
school, it falls on me. It falls on me. So if she's not properly trained, then that's on me. And so you mentioned something else because you said understanding the why.
Yeah.
I'm going to lead in if now's a good time. So in the book, man, it talks a lot about war, and they had been there several years. Eventually, it came to a point to where these Navy SEALs were asked to actually serve with Iraqi soldiers. The book goes into great description. It says that, man, these were people that had zero training. They came and broke down sandals. The weapons that they had were old, were no good. They couldn't be reliable. And so Jocko and Leaf, they're thinking, what in the world? First of all, why are they asking us to train or to fight? We can't trust these guys.
Right.
How can we possibly trust them and let them in? Not only
And
that,
complete our missions with them beside us.
and not only that, they have second-rate everything.
Yeah.
What in the world are we supposed to do with the weapons, with their gear? It even goes on to say that the uniforms that they had, they were from other countries. None of them matched.
Wow.
They could have been like Ukrainian or Russian fatigues, military. Like they didn't even have matching uniform. Nothing. It was just insane. And so he goes, how in the world are we supposed to work with these guys? And it really rubbed them the wrong way. But why don't you tell us, give us the why. What was all that about?
Well, that I was actually reading that story under the chapter 3, where the title was "Believe."
Yeah,
said that belief in the mission. Without belief in the mission, nothing is possible. A leader has to believe in the mission to convince and inspire others to believe in the mission.
Right.
And so he went on to say that upper command wanted them to take Iraqi soldiers on every operation.
And they
could not understand, like, this makes no sense. So they didn't understand the why. So they went back, upper command asked, what is why are we doing this? This is insane. And they told him, that you guys, if us U.S. soldiers don't train these guys and take them on these missions, they're never going to get the training that they need to keep themselves safe. Like for generations and generations, we're going to have to keep coming back.
It's going to be the Americans
to save them
exactly
and
right.
keep them safe. When if we just train them, they can do it themselves. So I said, this is the reason. And so the SEALs said, okay, that's the why. That makes total sense. Now we understand. Now we can complete our mission.
Yeah, and in that moment, Jocko goes on to say, too, that, once he was able to accept it and relay it to his people, this is the power of a leader, that they began to accept it and understand.
Right.
There was still transition and still hardships that occurred, but you can understand that they were trying to train to break a potential generational thing where Americans had to be the ones to continue to come in and rescue.
Yeah.
And so there was a bigger picture. We don't always see that, but it was really interesting. Once you know that why and what you're doing, things can begin to fall into place. So
Yeah, definitely. So it goes on to say, belief alone does not accomplish anything. Your team has to execute.
Wow.
This ties in with the fourth law of combat, decentralized command. The leader must explain not just what to do, but why. Then they must let their team do the job.
Wow.
A team that believes in the mission and is allowed to execute is a team that wins.
Unbelievable. I love that. In chapter 2, the title of chapter 2, it's No Bad Teams, Only Bad Leaders. And so in this chapter, he talks about that part of their training, they had to do these boat crew races. Basically, they are split up in teams of, it might be 4 or 5 individuals, several teams, up to 10 teams. And it's like this big obstacle course. They have to row out to the middle of the ocean, come back. Once they're there, they have to carry their boat like a certain number of miles. You're talking about very, very rigorous. And they had to do this a bunch of times. Well, it goes on to say that they gave them the instructions and they said, this is what you're going to do, a long list of things. You row out, you come back, you carry the boat. We're talking a very rigorous experiment. And so he goes on to say that, man, we kept seeing this. We had them do it several times, and there was this one team that kept dominating, and there was one team that kept falling behind. Like the same team kept coming in first, and the same team kept coming in last. And man, the crazy thing, it says that when you're a Navy SEAL, when you come in last, it's not good because they just dog you even harder intentionally. Said it's very, very rigorous. And if you're last, they're going to make you know you're last, and they're going to add work to you. And so they did it several times, and then finally they said, you know what, I want to try something here. They said that the team that was winning, man, it said everybody seemed motivated. They were freaking awesome, and so he said, you know what, we're going to do this a couple more times. So they switched the leaders that from the first place and the last place. They said, well, we're just going to switch these guys and see what happens. Dude, no lie. It says that. And this is talking about the difference one individual can make.
Yeah.
They switched the leader, dude, and the team that was coming in last began to start coming in first place. And it's because of the impact of the leader. You got to read this because it's awesome. But he talks about just the powerful impact. How is it possible that switching a single individual, only the leader, had completely turned around the performance of an entire group? The answer: leadership is the single greatest factor in any team's performance. Whether a team succeeds or fails is all up to the leader. Yeah. The leader's attitude sets the tone for the entire team. The leader drives performance or doesn't. And this applies not just to the most senior leader of an overall team, but to the junior leaders of teams within the team. And so, man, I thought it was a great visual example because as I was reading that, I could see these teams doing this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's also a very powerful demonstration of the power of one single individual in leadership.
It also, I'm going to piggyback on that. It also said the team that had been doing the best, where their leader had gotten switched,
Yes.
it said that they still performed well, even with a new underperforming leader. The reason? Because junior members of that team stepped up, filled in the gap, and led.
Wow.
So the influence that leader had with the motivation and the
training,
clearly
the vision,
communicating the vision, and was passed down to the other members of the team. So with him being on, they were able to then step up into that leadership position and adapt and still do well.
Yeah.
So I think that's crucial to know that as well.
It is. So how does this apply to you? Well, first of all, I just want to reiterate that, man, never discount the influence that you have. Never discount the influence that you have, because as you can see here, sometimes we think, the world is big. What difference can I make? And maybe from a global perspective, it doesn't feel like we're doing much. But to the people that we are living our lives with and around, that we lead and live and do life with, man, there is so much power in your influence. And then if you have great leaders, I want you to be thankful for them and think about, wow, like, how would my life be different if I didn't have that type of leadership in my life?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, it's definitely, it's important to think about and analyze. In that same chapter, it says, if your team is underperforming or failing to accomplish your mission, you can't blame the team, the training, the equipment, or the circumstances. Instead, blame yourself.
Wow.
It's not experience or talent that is the greatest driver of success, but leadership. So recognize there's no bad teams, only bad leaders. And that's not just to say every organization, there's only one person to blame.
Yeah.
At the very, very top. No, that means there are multiple leaders within every organization. Each leader must take ownership for their specific part that they play in the mission and carrying out and motivating in their teams. And you can relate this, y'all, if you're not even a part of a business or corporation or organization, church.
Yeah.
Relate it to your family, right? If you have children, you're a leader.
Yeah.
If you have a spouse, you're a leader.
That's it.
If you have friends, you're a leader in some capacity. So this is relatable to anybody.
Yeah, it's absolutely relatable, and I think we can see the leadership aspect. What he's driving home here that might be a hard pill to swallow, though, is that extreme ownership. We have to take ownership, and listen. There might be things that truly might not be our fault. But I still think there are instances where we just got to own it and say, you know what, that's on me. And so I love this. Yeah. He goes on here, talks about how the SEALs are a brotherhood, but he said, in the SEAL teams, the bond of our brotherhood is our strongest weapon. If you take that away from us, we lose our most important quality as a team.
So that's relationship.
Right? And that's what I was going to say. That is 100% relationship. And so I think that's why we're so blessed to do the things we do, because a lot of the things that we are involved in, it's relationship based.
It is. It doesn't mean that we see our people every day. And
right.
We're hanging out every weekend, having the barbecue and all up in everybody's face in business 24/7. No, but there's, like you said, that bond. And we always go back to it's covenant. Especially
that's exactly right.
With our folks that we work with at the church and we serve with, like we're in covenant with them, which is an even 100%. An even higher to me bond and relationship, because that understanding and that mutual vision and mission is there. And I wanted to say one more thing.
Sure, please.
Going back to even chapter 1, the extreme ownership. So I wanted to point out what is not extreme ownership. Simply saying that something was your fault or apologizing for a mistake is not extreme ownership.
Wow.
Words are not magic, and they don't make problems go away. As a leader, you have to accept responsibility, genuinely seek a solution, and implement that solution to ensure success. That doesn't mean that you allow your team to sit around and wait for you to solve all the problems. The most successful teams demonstrate a culture of ownership up and down the chain of command, when everyone steps up and works to solve problems, or at least their piece of the overall problem.
Wow. God. So it's not just a shallow apology.
Not just saying, hey, I'm the leader. I'm just going to take this one because we screwed up.
Right.
We didn't do good. Like, it's my fault. Like, no. Okay, yes. Apologize if it is something that you directly, that was directly affected by you. But it's taking extreme ownership. It's doing. It's action-based.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We can't just say fancy words and fancy nice things.
That's it. Like, action has to back it up. Yeah. This book was pretty powerful. Moving on to chapter 4, unless you had another thought from that chapter.
Chapter 4.
So, guys, this book, chapter 4, is actually called Check the Ego. And it's crazy. And we're going to get into the ego in just a second. But he goes on to say, Navy SEALs are... typically, they're a very elite force. It's not typically a huge group of people. It could be 10, 6, something like that. And many times, as a SEAL, they are asked to participate with other branches, Army, could be. So he gives an example in chapter 4 about a time. He says when they were dispatched, and it says that the Army 101st Airborne Division, 1st Battalion, the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, they were assigned to do work with them. And now this particular regiment, it says that they're the legendary 506th. They were made famous by Stephen Ambrose's book called A Band of Brothers, and that book became a miniseries on HBO. Yeah. So this was a very elite Army division task force. They were well known for being on point. He goes on to say that they were, Navy SEALs typically are rough and scruff, and that they got long hair, whereas with the Army, those guys are clean cut. And he said, out of respect, I cleaned all my guys up, I made them cut their hair, I made them shave, because he wanted to honor and to fit in. If they were going to be working together, you can imagine they're eating lunch together. And he didn't say that their guys necessarily had a problem with it. They were okay. But he goes on to say that there was another division that came, and ended up being assigned with them too, and just said they were so disrespectful. And he goes on to say how ego in the battlefield ended up costing them because of their inability. And this is what he goes on to say in the book. He said, ego clouds and disrupts everything. The planning process, the ability to take good advice, and the ability to accept constructive criticism. It can even stifle someone's sense of self-preservation. Often, the most difficult ego to deal with is your own. And it's crazy. He goes on to say, everyone has an ego. Ego drives the most successful person in life. He says, but they want to win. They want to be the best. That is good. But when ego clouds our judgment and prevents us from seeing the world as it is, then ego becomes destructive. When personal agendas become more important than the team and the overarching mission success, performance suffers and failure ensues. And so extreme ownership, in short, requires checking your ego and operating with a high degree of humility, admitting mistakes, taking ownership, and developing a plan to overcome challenges is a super, it's the way to success. So,
wow. I think that's tough for everybody.
yeah.
It's tough
I know
for
I
me.
said a lot there, but
You did, but let me boil it down to like the humility and our ego. And like, when we make a mistake, nobody likes to like have it pointed out or want others to know. Like we just want it to go away. But those things don't go away when we make mistakes. It's so much better to realize it first of all.
Right.
That you're not the end all be all just because you think you do everything right.
yeah, exactly.
And accept responsibility when you are screw up.
Right.
Or you mess up or you don't do what was needed, was necessary to complete the mission or goal. Yeah, that's difficult.
Well, it is. And he tells a story in here about how the worst thing that can happen actually happened. And they have a code word for it. I don't remember off the bat, but essentially it's friendly fire. And so they were, it's just a story. But the principle or the moral of that is that, man, if you don't check your ego at the door, especially in a situation such as war, if you're not willing to take orders, if you're not humble, if you're not listening. And so think about that. I think going back to the self-sabotage, that whole idea, man, when we don't take extreme ownership, that we're setting ourselves up for big failure. And so admitting those mistakes, being humble, asking for forgiveness, all of those things, I think it's really important.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. And obviously it's super important when we're in leadership in any capacity, especially when we're as leaders. One of our goals is to replicate ourselves, right?
Yeah,
like we don't want to
absolutely.
always be the one who knows how to do a specific job or task or whatever it is that we're leading.
That's exactly right.
Right? So if we're not mentoring or duplicating ourselves to the next person to come in and fill that,
Yes.
then we're failing. We're not always going to be in the position
That's
that we're
it.
at. Someone else is going to have to come along.
Right.
Right? And sometimes it's hard, especially if the ego is out of control. No one can come in and do that better than me. So I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to continue to do it. And that's failure.
Some what do they say? People are power hungry. They get in a power position and they don't know what to do with that power. And so it's just like, you're down there, I'm up here. And so you better check your ego at the door. I was always told growing up that, you got two ways of humility. One, you can humble yourself, or two, God can do it. And when he does, I promise it's going to be way worse than had you just, humbled
Accepted
yourself and did what you needed to do.
Right,
But
right.
Extreme Ownership, Part 1, we covered a couple of things from each chapter. And did you have any other thoughts from any of the
I was just
chapters?
going to read just this last one.
Yes, please.
When you can't keep your ego in check, you don't listen to anyone, you don't evolve or get better, you don't adapt or implement new technology and new methods. I feel like that's me. I don't want to change my technology. I want to keep using what I'm using because I know how to do it. You don't respect the competition, you get complacent, and you can't self-assess.
My goodness.
So check those things. We all struggle
That's it.
with these. aspects.
Yeah. Part one,
Feel like-
extreme ownership. We know it's intense, but audit your life. What are the things that you need to take extreme ownership of? And how can this help you become the leader that we know you're meant to be? And so hope that was an encouragement. Hope it was impactful. I encourage you to get this book.
Good stuff.
Read it. I want to thank our chamber president locally, Stephanie, for getting this book for us, part of the leadership cohort that I'm in. And so she's the one who got this for us. So thank you for that. Hope you were encouraged on this episode of the Junto podcast. Are we going to do part two?
We got to do
We
part
got to do
two.
part two. So keep,
Of course we're
that's going to be
gonna.
coming soon. Part two of extreme
My question.
ownership right here on the Junto podcast. That's right. The
Together podcast.
We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Junto podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. You can find our link to YouTube and social media at juntopodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, like, and follow. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.